To the show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. We're going to talk about quite a few things, but as you know, I've started this conversation and these conversations, this podcast, to really bring women into community and to let women know they're not alone when they're going through a major life change like a divorce, a job loss, or anything else. There's lots of things going on. And I really appreciate having these conversations with amazing women who have walked the path before us and can really share some wisdom, some guidance, some advice on what worked for them when they were going through really challenging times. And I know you have a job loss story, and let's dive right into it. I'd love to hear your job loss story, what happened, and how you moved through that challenging situation.
Sure. Yeah. So I transitioned from being a hairdresser to managing people's billions, which sounds a little crazy, maybe, but I luckily got my life insurance license while I was still a hairdresser. And because I was curious about the financial world, I was one of those kids that just didn't grow up learning about money. So um, it is a really long story there, but I ended up having an opportunity to kind of get into the financial world. So I took this life insurance course. The day after I found out I passed the exam, I met this person at a picnic and she was like, "Oh, well, you should probably like go talk to my husband because there's an office open and you should go work for this, investment firm." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this sounds like crazy." But sure. So I went and talked to him. Then I found out what I needed to do to get hired, and indeed there was a position open that I would probably be able to get if I, took this training, which I wanted to take the training anyways, and I was able to at the time. So I did that, and 3 years later, after working through all the training and starting an office and bringing in millions of dollars of investment money in the community, they fired me. And I got the phone call,
Mm.
and I was sitting in my office, and my assistant, who was like my best friend at the time, because you got to hire your best friend, um, which was really awesome that she was there for me that day because I was a pile of tears. Yeah, they fired me and they said, "You're not bringing in the commissions that we expect of you," which I knew that. But I still just had this feeling like everything was going to be okay. Like somehow, even though I was terrified and it was the most stressed out I'd ever been, it was such a blessing that I got fired because I was so stressed out at that time. For about 6 months
Mm.
leading up to that, I was like, I knew I wasn't hitting my commission targets, but the commission structure itself just seemed like such bullshit to me. Like I was like, how am I getting paid to help people with their money, but this is how I'm getting paid, which is a complete conflict of interest. Like this isn't even fair to these people that I'm getting paid like this to do these things. So it just really was
Mm.
out of whack for me morally. It didn't work for me. It had me just more stressed than I'd ever been. So the day I got fired, even though I was devastated, I cried for hours. I had to clean all my stuff out of my office. My best friend, who was my assistant, was now put into a position by the head office that was signing her paychecks to basically become like a cop and escort me out of the building. And she was my friend for
Mm.
like years before she was my assistant. So yeah, my heart's like it's like childbirth. I had a baby once, like 17, 18 years ago, and I never think about it because it was traumatizing. That's what's happening to me right now. I'm having like palpitations,
Mm.
but long story short, it was such a blessing. And within 48 hours, I could see that. Day one, getting
Mhm.
fired, like crying, crying, crying. Day two, I started making phone calls. I was like, okay, I know all these people in the financial industry who used to work for this company. Um, and now are not. And so I found out from them kind of the same sort of stuff that was going on with me, the stuff that didn't feel right for them, the reasons why they didn't want to work there anymore. Most of them didn't get canned like I did. They they took their, large books of business and went to other firms. However, I immediately realized that there were so many opportunities out there and I would have never even known about them had I not had this comfort zone little thing, end. So I was
Mhm.
immediately making more money with less assets under management. It was crazy. Um, yeah, it was such a blessing in disguise. And then so I got fired in 2014. I started my own boutique financial firm at the time, which I still have today. I still have investment clients and I still do the financial planning things. And then in 2018, after a couple of years of writing a book about money and about marketing myself, that was the crappiest thing about working for that firm is I couldn't market myself the way I wanted to. They were always
Mhm.
like, "You can't do that. You can't say that. We need all your social channel links so that we can monitor them. And I was just like, oh, this is weird. I don't like this. So as soon as they, fired me, I was immediately able to like do my own thing, which is my jam. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had this like gut feeling about what I should be doing on social media and how I should be showing up and the things I should be saying. And I just kind of kept following that intuition. And then I started having some female entrepreneurs in my world messaging me and seeing me at like, the grocery store or whatever, being like, whoa, like you're on fire. Like you wrote a book and you're doing all this stuff online and like, holy cow, like, how are you doing all this? And so I started getting this question a lot. And so I decided to hold a women's marketing workshop. And then I kind of kept holding these one-off workshops. And you know the story about that. I eventually realized that what I was missing was a community and that I should be building community off of these workshops and these one-off events.
Well, I definitely want to talk about community, but I just want to go back to what you were talking about where you felt out of alignment in this job, right? So I hear that a lot, and that happened to me too. Deep down, we know we're not really meant to be there, and yet we stay because what you said, well, it was stable, right? I did this for 3 years. I invested a lot of time and money and energy into creating this job, right? And nothing's wrong with jobs, nothing's wrong with working for other people, but when it feels out of alignment, it's so interesting to me that so many of us just stay there anyways, even though we're not 100% happy. Why do you think that is?
I think that because we're not quitters. We need someone to slam the door in our face and be like, go, because we're not going to do that. We're not going to quit. It's just not how we're built. I think that's the short.
I really appreciate that perspective, Lindsay. I really appreciate that perspective because when that happened to me, I was like, why did I stay so long? Right? Like sometimes I think, is it conditioning? Was it programming? Is it because I thought that I should be here? And I know for me, it was that scary, like I can't do anything else, right? Like I'm looking for something else to go to. But as soon as that, I got kicked out the door, so to speak, all of a sudden, like what happened to you is all these doors started opening. And it's so interesting how, well, those doors were always there, but we almost like just keep ourselves, we're almost get in our own way of our own success and our own wanting to do what's actually right for us.
Yeah, like we have the right work ethic, we have the right toolkit, we have everything we need, but we're in the wrong place. And we don't know that. And everything that we've ever been taught, if we were raised to be confident, if we were raised to be go-getters, if we were raised to just like fight, which I was, we don't quit. We don't walk away from anything. We just keep grinding. And it's not fun, but I've never done it before that. And I know what it feels like now, and I won't do it again. Never, ever let myself feel like that again. But I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. So and I have no regrets about any of it. There's a lot more to that story that really wasn't my fault. For example, the person that stepped into that office the day after I walked out had been promised that office, and they knew for months and months that I was going to get canned. And there was assets that they could have put into that branch to save me that they didn't, and they waited until I was gone and they gave them to this new person. So there's things that happen that like, you're just like, well, like the cards were stacked against me. I was screwed. Like I couldn't have done anything better. And I was in the wrong place. I was not being compensated in a way that felt good to me. I was not valuing myself for being compensated the way that I was. So none of it was aligned with my values. I mean, you don't know that stuff until you get a little older, right? I was in my late 20s when this happened. I was trying to figure out who I am and what I actually value. Back then I thought I just valued, like being a big shot and looking like a big deal. And I didn't even care if I had money as long as people thought I did. That's all I cared about back then. I had that when I worked there. I wanted to keep that like image going. I didn't even care that I was broke. Everyone to think I was doing well.
It's interesting how adversity and challenging times actually brings out what's important to you. Because when things are going okay, even if we're not 100% happy, it's like, well, it's okay. Like I'm bringing in money, I'm fine, right? I have this title or I have this image or I have this whatever, and everything's kind of just going along and I don't have to think about anything else, right? But as soon as something happens, like, okay, boom, like how am I going to get myself out
Yeah.
of this? And when you went through this and you found out, oh my gosh, this they've been talking about this for
Yeah.
months. How did you deal with those feelings of like, wow,
Okay,
like
so funny story.
humiliation and betrayal and all that,
So funny
right?
story. My assistant, who is my best friend, who watched all this go down, as I've just been canned, and she's still in the branch, and she's seeing all this happen. So she's telling me these things, right? So the first day she told me what she had seen, it was like you when you got fired and you like took off on a road trip. I did the exact same thing. I was like, I
Mhm,
got nowhere to be. I want to go visit my mom and my
mhm.
brother and my sister, and I want to go back to my hometown and visit my friends and like go hang out on the farm that I used to spend time with my best friend. And like I just like got the heck out of Dodge and I went up north. And on the drive, I don't know if you've ever driven Highway 22, Cowboy Trail north of Cochrane to get like you go up to Whitecourt. And anyway, so it's a little zigzag. I've done it a gajillion times. She's telling me what I was just telling you about this other person coming to the branch and instantly being handed like millions of dollars of assets that they could have given to me. And I literally just like don't even know where I don't remember anything. All of a sudden, I'm in like I'm like my kid's in the car with me, and of course he's glued to his iPad watching a movie, so he doesn't know anything either. All of a sudden, I had no idea where I was. I had missed my
Oh my
turn like a
gosh.
half an hour before, and I was like literally driving into the mountains on some road I'd never been on before. I
Oh
was
my
like
gosh.
so yeah, I mean, I was still reeling emotionally from like the most stress. Like it's crazy the stuff. Like I did some crazy scary things when I was driving within that first 48 hours of getting fired too. Like
Mm.
it was such I mean, I know I'm a better person because of it, but I'm really glad that no one died or that I didn't crash or end up, I don't know.
Well, we're dysregulated,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Like, it probably wasn't what you would the language you used back then, like, that certainly wasn't the language that I used when I got fired, but that's definitely what happens, right? Like, we go into some sort of shock, we go into
Mhm.
disbelief, like, our whole life has been turned upside
Yeah.
down. We're dealing with a whole plethora of different feelings and emotions that are wide ranging all the time, right? And so, although I, like, love the idea of a road trip, maybe the advice is maybe
Maybe
wait
wait
24
like on a
hours.
plane or something that you're not driving yourself and don't drive to
Right.
the airport.
Right. Yes. Get away, but do it safely, right? Yeah.
Uh,
But that's the important thing, right? Is to know that, hey, when things happen to us that are unexpected, it's like, okay, I'm out of
mm,
regulation, right? Like I'm in fight, flight, or
yeah,
freeze. I'm in anxiety, I'm in overwhelm, I'm in shock, or I'm in anger, all these
yeah,
things. It's knowing that and then, okay, what do I need to do to actually get myself out of that feeling so I can actually start thinking a bit more clearly? And I love what, you took a couple of days to do that, and then you're like, "Okay, what do I need to do next?" Like, you started making phone
yeah.
calls. You started taking some
Yeah, I
action.
started meeting with people and I did hire a business coach. About
Mm,
a year later, I hired a business coach. And yeah, I mean, for that first year though, I was just like, I felt like it was like I was coming out of COVID. It was very similar because when I worked at this firm, we would go to events to learn about, industry things and sales and marketing. And actually, I learned tons about sales and marketing while I was there. So I still
mm.
lean on some of the stuff I learned about sales and marketing from that firm. So I mean, again, there's nothing bad that happened there. Like it was good that it all went down the way it did. But they would send us to these events only with people from our firm. They were purposely protecting us from other banks trying to nab us because we were the
Mm.
best trained in the industry. Like it was known. So it was like yeah, they didn't even want us on LinkedIn. They were just like, please keep your blinders on and stay in our little cult. And so I didn't know that there was all these awesome opportunities out there. And as soon as I got out there and I started going to events and I ended up signing a representation agreement with this other firm, and I ended up having like all these different contracts with different firms to be able to have this product suite which was very similar to what I'd had before. And like I was a stockbroker. So you know how the world of that has changed in the last 20 years. I was
Mhm.
literally a stockbroker. No one has a stockbroker anymore. You can do it yourself. So thank God I got fired, right? But anyway,
Mm,
it was crazy that first year, the people I met, the things I learned about, the opportunities that presented themselves to me, one of which was going to a conference in Kelowna, and that's where I met my business coach, and he was up on
mm,
stage, and he was doing all the things, like, you and I were working on a workshop together recently, and I was saying a lot of the things to you that I know when I watched him do his presentation, and I know what pulled me in. It was like, all those same things. So I learned from him. I ended up taking a couple months to percolate on the idea of investing in a business coach when I didn't really have any money to do that.
mhm.
Did somehow. I was just like, I got enough room on this credit card for this month, and I got enough room on this credit card for next month, and we're doing this, and I have no idea how this is going to work. Please God, let this work. Like, literally, please God. I was just like, I have no idea. And I did it. And I immediately started making more money. And my marketing just got better because I got more confident. He drilled into me how to be more confident. He was always like, it was like having a teacher, a piano teacher who would slap your wrist with a ruler when you would screw up. It was almost like that little, like, what did you just say about yourself? Or like, how did you just word that? And I was just like, ah! And it was so good. It was like the confidence I needed. It was an incredible experience. I can't imagine where I would be today if I hadn't invested in that coach. It was fun.
Mhm. Mhm. What's your number one advice then to someone who's going through a job loss like this, or they've gotten fired, or they're not really sure what to do next? Like when that happens, we lose our confidence, right? Like I know that's for me. I was like, oh, my confidence is down the drain now, right? Like someone doesn't want me. I've been rejected. Obviously, I'm not good enough. Like all these stories that we tell ourselves.
Mhm.
What's your number one piece of advice to start that confidence building process?
Well, I think you've got to fake it till you make it when you go out into the world. I think you've got to fake the confidence, but you also need to hire someone that you can be 100% real with. And you need to
Mm,
pour out your heart to them, and you need to pay them to keep your secrets, and you need to pay them to help you become more confident, because very few of us have someone in our life that understands what it's like to be, you know, grinding through building your career, building a business, and has like is still in it and will give you free advice. Like, it's just hard to find people like that. So get over the idea that you're not worth investing money in, and just invest in yourself and get a coach. Find
yeah.
someone who's been there, who's struggled through the things you're going with, and has come out on the other side with a blueprint that you want, and pay them for it and let them walk you through how to do it. And you might not get the right coach the first time, but you have to trust that you will. And you also have to, um, you just have to change up your group. You have to change up your
Mm,
people. Like, you can't, yeah, like I completely changed my friendship circle, and the people, and my days looked totally different, right? Like once I started going out into the world, and now people are still being weird after COVID. People are still staying at home way more than they should. They're saying no to things, or they're saying yes, and then at the last minute they're bailing out because they'd rather watch Netflix. Like, stop doing that.
mhm,
We've been conditioned to stay home because of the last 3 years. Like, no, 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 that's not going to help you. It's not going to
mhm,
help you. Whatever little
mhm.
voice that's telling you that in your head, that it's, oh, it's more comfy and cozy if I just stay home instead of going out to that event. No, get your ass to that event, meet the people, trust that you're supposed to be there to meet someone or hear something, or meet someone who's going to tell their friend about you a week later. You might not even feel like you should have been at that event for a week or two, and then bam, someone connects you with someone. And if you hadn't been at that event, no, 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 like, it's a whole thing that you can't have if you don't get out of your house. And I'm
Mhm.
guilty of it too. And that's why I have a community where I have to hold events that I have to go to, because I have to go to the events.
You have to be at your event.
Yeah.
Tell us about your community, your YYC Friendpreneur community, how that came to be, why I mean, obviously, I know why community is important to you. You've alluded to it a little bit, but, like, the importance of what you've learned from your community,
Mhm.
what your vision is for your community, all that
Yeah.
kinda good stuff.
Well, it's our 5th year. So this month is our fifth birthday, the YYC Foundation.
Woohoo!
It's 5 now, which is crazy. Um, and 5 years ago, I was still coming out of the shock of, um, being a solopreneur, and I was really lonely at times. Even though I was getting out there and I was making new connections, I was still really lonely at times. And waiting for the next event to, like, come into your inbox, or waiting for the next, person to say, "Hey, I'm going to this event. Do you want to come?" Like, always just hoping that something else was going to happen wasn't good enough for me. I kind of wanted to take the reins and build some structure in my life around getting together with other go-getter women. I knew a lot of women wanted the same thing. I knew that I was gaining a lot of traction online with my marketing efforts, which were literally just throwing spaghetti at the wall, and I was finding things that worked. So I just knew that there needed to be something, but I didn't know what it was. And then I went to the Hoffman retreat, which was gifted to me and 26 other people. And the first night that I was there, I had this clear vision for what you and I are now experiencing in the YYC Fempreneur community. I was having a vision for how these events would go down. I had visions of me standing on stage and bringing up other women speakers. I had visions of me coaching women on my computer. Like I saw it, and I was like,
Mm,
whoa. So then I
wow.
started working backwards, and I was like, well, how would I actually do that? And it's like, well, I got to start, if I'm going to be coaching women, I got to start coaching women. I don't need to charge them for it, but I got to start like teaching them what I know. Like there are things that I know that work. Like I know that these things work. So I can teach them those things. And there's going to be things that they want to know that I don't know. And I'm just going to say, I don't know, but I'll find out, or I'll point
Mhm.
you in a different direction. So I decided to start a completely free 6-week marketing school for women. And I decided to do it at 6 a.m. because moms of kids would be able to like have the house quiet still. And maybe moms that worked or women that worked would be able to still do that and then get to their job if they weren't working in their business full time. And I ran a completely free 6-week marketing school for about a year and a half. And I think to date, there's like 170 some women that completed it. But the first 100 women they completed it completely free. And then I kind of switched back and forth between giving it away as a gift or a prize and then charging for it. Um, and the community piece happened because I had already held, like I was telling you before, I had already held some one-off workshops for women. And I was like, okay, bye everybody. That's been fun. It's been a great 2 hours. I hope you have a really great rest of your life. Like, I don't know like what we're gonna do here. So maybe we'll all get together for coffee in a week or two. And I would say things like that. And it always felt really weird when I was trying to wrap up. Because really all that I had for them, I was like, well, if you need help with stuff, you can hire me. Like I'll help you build the website, or I'll make your website better, or I'll help you work on your marketing. But they wanted the community piece too. So this vision that came to me the first night at the Hoffman retreat was 6-week marketing school and then a grad night celebration. And we would celebrate that they'd completed the program. The next program would be starting 2 weeks later. The women who were registered for that program or were kind of interested in it but weren't sure yet would come to the grad night too and hear the stories of the women that just completed the program and hear why they loved it and what they loved about it. And so that's what I did. I did these grad night celebrations, and they became like our signature events. And now they've evolved into what we're doing tomorrow, February 22nd, which is kind of like a big grad night in a way, but it's also networking and, mix of teaching and networking and celebrating each other. And yeah, I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yeah. I'm curious what you've learned from building community.
Oh gosh, so much. And that's what my talk is on tomorrow. It's about events specifically because it's kind of a catch 22. Like you can't hold an event if you don't know anybody, because probably nobody's going to come if you don't know people. So you kind of need a bit of a community to hold an event. Um, but you also need to hold events if you want to. How did that work in my head earlier? I don't know. I think I just murdered that explanation. But basically, it's a catch 22 because I'm always like, events, events, events. But if you have no email list and you
Mhm.
have no, like, if you have 4 followers on Instagram and you don't even have a YouTube channel yet, you just landed from Mars and you have no social media, anything, holding an event sounds kind of like, how the heck am I going to do that? So that's what I did. When I first held events, I had like no community. So I had to knock on doors. I literally knocked on hundreds and hundreds of doors to get my community, which I still have today. So again, getting fired, sucky, but that firm that I worked at for 3 years gave me so much of the foundation that I'm still building on today. So if you don't have a community, this is lesson number one. If you don't have a community, you still have to hold an event every once in a while. It doesn't have to be at a physical location. It could just be on Google Meet, which is what I do now. I hold a free workshop about every quarter on Google Meet, and I bring women in there and I like hang out with them, and they interact a little bit and I teach them some stuff and I have them do a little bit of work. It's like a workshop. And then I send them on their way. And each time I do that, I grow my community, and everyone who comes there grows their community. So going
Mm.
to events grows your community, holding events grows your community. And if you have an event in the calendar that you're hosting and you go to someone else's event, you have something to talk about that's not just like, buy from me, hire me. It's like, oh, I
Mm.
have this cool event coming up. Do you want to come? Like, if you don't have an event coming up, you can't say that. And then you're like
Mhm.
everybody else. So community building tip, I guess, number one is events are key, going to them and holding them yourself.
Mhm.
And
And putting yourself out there, right? I think that's what I'm hearing too. It's like, take the bull by the horns, take the initiative. People aren't necessarily going to come to you. And sure, it might be more comfortable to wait around for someone to ask us to go somewhere. But the reality is, everyone's waiting around for that.
yes,
So we need to make that effort. And what I hear a lot from women is, I feel alone. I want to change up who I'm hanging out with. I want to be around other women who are supportive, uplifting, encouraging. And what I'm hearing from you is like, okay, you need to then go to events. And if there's no events to go to, create your own and
yeah,
just invite people, because people will
yeah,
come. Women will come. Like, we need this connection. We need face to face. We need support. We need to see
yeah.
each other. And if it's in person, great. If it's online,
Mhm.
awesome. Like, all those connections are super critical, but you need to take the first step.
Yes. One thing I really have to add, and this is something that I haven't done in a long time, but I think I might have even mentioned this to you recently. I would like to do this. I'm going to get to the point. Flyers, physical paper flyers in coffee shops, at the
Mm,
post office, wherever the heck they still have them everywhere. I don't care where you live on the planet. They
mhm,
have them. And that's how I got
mhm,
started. When I first started holding workshops, I knocked on doors. I put my flyers into envelopes and mailed them to the people that had opened the doors and told me their name and said, yes, you can contact me in the future. I don't necessarily recommend you do that, but that was how I got my start. And then they opened the envelope from Lindsay Berry, and oh, it's a little invitation to an event. Ooh, right? Like, how often do you get an invitation in the mail anymore? Right? Like, never.
mhm. Never.
But putting an invite on a bulletin board out at the public place in the community, if you have like no social media presence yet, that's gonna get you some eyeballs, right? Make sure there's a QR
Mhm.
code on there that works, that goes to an actual link that works, and they don't have to click 70,000 times to get signed up for your event. Gonna be talking about that more tomorrow. But yeah, community building, there's a lot to it, but it's also just like trusting your intuition. You just have
Mhm.
to trust your
Mhm.
intuition. You have two
Mhm.
voices. You have imposter syndrome and you have intuition. And like Vera's one of those people that has the gift of helping women listen to the intuition and start saying no to the to the messages coming from the bad guy or girl or
Mhm.
whatever. And I just
Mhm.
got better and better at trusting my intuition and being like, so and so just like my Facebook page. Why was he from his Facebook page? I'll have a few minutes. Maybe I should go create their profile and send them a message and say, hey, thanks for liking my page. I see that you like cats. I like cats too. What's your cat's name? I get intuition messages saying I should do that. And then I get imposter
Mm.
syndrome or like whatever this is saying, oh, that's weird. You're creepy. Oh, that's weird. Don't do that. That's what I usually listen
Mm.
to 99% of the time. Because this is actually how I've grown my community. And you've been doing more.
And it's working. So now you have evidence. You're like, okay, like, maybe it feels weird the first time because it's outside our comfort zone and we're just not used to it. And putting yourself out there is really vulnerable. I mean, I've done it too, where I've put up flyers on the boards at the coffee shop, and it's weird. It's like, oh gosh, there's my name, there's my phone number, right? Yeah, it's really vulnerable, right? But once you start getting people connecting with you, it's like, oh, wait, that worked, right? Oh, my intuition didn't steer me
Mhm. And for
wrong.
the love of God, put your face
So
on all of your marketing, please, humans. Whoever's listening to
I
this or
know
watching this, if you put anything out there onto social media that was just words on a stock image, I'm gonna come after you and yell at you.
for those of people who are listening after February 22nd. So I know, so we have this event coming up tomorrow. I'm super excited to be a speaker this year. I'm super excited to hear the other speakers. I'm just really looking forward to connecting with all the amazing women in your community. But for those who are listening after February 22nd, will you be recording? Can we listen to the
Yeah, that's
recording?
the goal.
What's the deal with that?
The
That's the
goal
goal.
is that I
Okay.
will record all of the workshops and that I will have each of them on a separate episode of the Fempreneur podcast. Maybe your recording will be on your podcast too. I don't know what you're going to
Mhm.
decide to do. But technology isn't always our friend, so no promises. I'm going to do my best. I'm pretty good.
But at the very least, go follow
Yeah,
YYC Fempreneur,
yeah.
right? How else can people get in touch with
Yeah,
you,
the best
Lindsay?
thing to do is just go to my website and browse around. You're going to find YouTube videos. You're going to find the latest and greatest events. You're going to find the podcast. You're going to find the blog. I go through phases with the blog. I'm in a pretty bloggy phase right now. I've got a lot to say these days. So, um,
Mhm,
yeah, I mean,
mhm. So yycfempreneurs.com. I'll put the link down below in the show notes for everybody. So join Lindsay's community because that's the whole point here is like join a
mhm,
community, be part of other women who are, doing their thing, being vulnerable, supporting other women. And if you're not an entrepreneur, that's okay too, because we all need people to support entrepreneurs, right? We all need people to support our businesses, learn more about us, and you're going to be part of an amazing community, regardless of where you are, what stage you're in, what you're doing.
yeah.
It's especially in person. It's just so important to have that connection. So join Linda's
Mhm,
community is my
mhm.
message.
Please.
Yes. Any other parting words of wisdom, Lindsay, before we close our conversation that you would want to share with other women who are going through getting fired or going through something else or just considering what to do next if they're feeling a bit stuck?
Yeah, I mean, just back to like why we need community. If you're feeling stuck, it's probably because the people you're spending the most time with are not the people you should be spending the most time with. Probably need some
Mm,
new friends. I'm going to say
mhm,
that louder. You probably need some new friends. So get out of your house, take off your sweatpants and put on some regular pants and get out there and make some new friends. If you're an entrepreneur, they have to be entrepreneurs. I'm sorry. It is a bit of
mhm,
a cult, but it's a thing. You have to hang out with entrepreneurs or you're going to feel stuck more. You're going to feel confused more. You're going to feel crazy more. I was like getting the weirdest looks from all my friends back when I started posting about my business on social media. They were all like, "Oh my gosh, you're always like putting yourself on the internet." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I don't just get a paycheck from a crappy job. I have to work and like get clients. Like that's
mhm.
and I
Yeah, so surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded, but also in the same life stage as us, like going through something similar, right? Experiencing that. Then it's also the community of just people who we find interesting or authentic or uplifting or encouraging, right? And then there's also the community that you were referring to of people who have gone
Mhm.
before us. And it can be that community can be crossing over to the other communities, but people that we can learn from, right? People that we can hire to teach us, people that we can get mentored by, people that we can be inspired by that we can say, hey, like they've
Yeah.
done it, right? Here's how they've done it. And then it gives you confidence that you can do it too. Like we need all those different types of communities in in our life, I believe.
Yeah, changing your environment is huge. And like even retreats, like you've held retreats. I have a retreat coming up in April and another one in January. And like getting people out of their normal vibe and getting them into a place where they have permission to ponder what they want and how they feel and basically force them to get in touch with their intuition and then create from that place of being in touch with their intuition. So if you've never been to a retreat, you don't have to come to my retreat, you don't have to come to Vera's retreats, but go to a retreat of some kind, right?
Mhm.
There's so many ways to find new, inner circle people and to rewire your brain in a better way. So just don't be afraid to try new
Mhm.
things and get out of the old sweatpants in your same little space that you spend your time in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for being part of my community. Thank you for accepting me.
Oh,
Not that you wouldn't, but thank you for just being so generous with your community and so generous with your time and your energy and with supporting me and supporting other female entrepreneurs. So grateful for you. And I look forward to working with you tomorrow and in the
mm,
future. So for everyone listening, join yycfempreneurs.com, join Lindsay's
yes.
community, and be part of something that is really uplifting and encouraging. It's what we
Yeah.
need. It's what we need in our world, right? So thank you for being on my show. Really
And
appreciate
it's our
it.
1-year anniversary, Vera, you and me. We met in person for the first time, like exactly a year ago.
We did. I met at your big event. That's right, which was amazing. And I met a lot of amazing women at that event that we've gotten to be friends, and we get out for coffee and we chit chat on LinkedIn or on, over text. So, and that's the beauty of that, right? You just never know. And it was really interesting too, because one of the ladies that I met at your event last year, we both kind of sat beside each other and we were both saying like, oh, it's kind of like always awkward coming to these things. You're by yourself, you don't know anybody. And we were kind of laughing about how we forced ourselves to come because we knew that it was the right
Mm.
thing. Right. And we're so silly. We overthink it. Like we're so worried about, we're not going to know anybody and no one's going to like me. Like, I don't know. We go back to like our 10-year-old self or something. And then you show up and everyone's like so lovely, super welcoming, so friendly, just wants to chit chat. And it's like, why was I so worried in the first place?
Yeah.
Right. Like people who go to events like that are good people. So don't be scared about showing up to events. You're always going to meet someone who's amazing. And if not, you be that amazing person, right? You be the one to say hi first. And you just never know where that conversation is going to go and where that's going to take you. So
Amen.
with that, we'll wrap it up. And thank you so much. And we'll see everyone soon.